2014 Sunday Law. We've looked at chapter 38, Great Controversy, beginning page 603. We looked 5 pages down in paragraph 608, sorry, page 608, paragraph 2. That's the one we did. As a storm approaches. We had a look at that. Basically an exercise in just how to read carefully. Don't know if anybody has any comments on that, or a testimony even.
I don't know about a testimony, but it made me think of when I was little. I used to always have this recurring dream of the time of trouble. You'd be looking through the woods and barbed wire fence, and the military army was shooting Seventh-day Adventists. Me and my mom and dad, brother and sister were crawling on the ground through the woods trying to get away, and I'd wake up. And so I never wanted to be alive during the time of trouble. Yeah, so I don't know if that...
Barring an accident, it's too late now, isn't it?
What?
So barring an accident, it's too late.
Yeah, so I just found that interesting. I had that dream, never wanted to be alive during it. And every day I said, God, I'm alive at the end of the world. He didn't say anything.
Scary. Anyone else? Anybody got any thoughts?
I was just, a picture came into my mind when we were talking about it earlier, when Douglas was talking about a storm in Alliston. My parents' house is not really on the big hill, but it's on a slight hill. And you can see, you can see the clouds get darker, a long way away. And you can see that the clouds are coming this way, and they get closer and closer. Most people don't get frightened at the sight of a storm, but when you see that the clouds are green, you know that it's either big hail or tornadoes are on their way. And so when you see that, when you have that recognition, that's what that storm means. It's not here. You don't even feel the wind yet. It's not raining. There's no wind. That's when you make the decision right then. You either hold your ground or you go. Long before the storm ever gets there.
Hmm.
I mean, relatively speaking.
Okay, then Sister Daniela, she was looking at 2014 Sunday, same question, but she'd approached from a different perspective. So, remember we said characteristics of the Sunday Law. Characteristics number 1, Brother David, was what? What did Sister Effie say? Characteristic number 1 was what?
Characteristic number 1 of the Sunday Law was that there would be an abandonment.
Good. Separation or an abandonment. Characteristic 2, Sister Catherine, that Sister Daniela said. Okay, she didn't say loud cry, she said latter rain. So the other characteristic is the latter rain. So we've got a separation or an abandonment and the latter rain. So they're 2 independent thoughts. The latter rain one is the harder one, it's the more difficult one. It's a lot more involved, because we could just do this with GC 608. The other one is not that straightforward. You need multiple lines of evidence. But the place we would go to would be Ezra 7 verse 9. Why Ezra 7 verse 9? Sister Juliana, why Ezra 7? What's so special about that?
Because it talks about the person.
Good. Tell me the person who's associated with Ezra 7. Samuel Snow, because it's Samuel Snow is the person that we think about, and Samuel Snow gave us what message? So he gave us the midnight cry. So if he's giving us the midnight cry, then we talk about the loud cry. You see an equivalence, and his foundational concept or message was Ezra 7. He uses Ezra 7 and builds upon that, and therefore if we're using Ezra 7 and we're building upon it, we see a parallel history. And Ezra 7 really came into the movement in 2014. We weren't really considering it before that. And what did we bring with Ezra 7 that really began to change the way we handle inspiration? What came with Ezra 7, Sister Wendy? What did it bring us besides Ezra? Okay, no, not besides. It brought us something of significance.
Are you talking about Daniel 9?
No, Ezra 7 itself. What's the verse just says? This thing happened here and there and that. It's a pretty benign verse.
Like a methodology?
A methodology, and what was that? The uniqueness that Ezra 7 began to really open up for us, that we had never considered before.
I'm not sure.
Okay, because the verse itself is. Why would we target the verse? Why is it so special? It's nothing particularly good. Sister Rachel.
I think maybe a structure or
So how do you create a structure? Okay, so you've got a structure, you've got a timeline, but it's an esoteric timeline. First day of the first month, first of the fifth month. How does that become significant?
like in the calculation and seeing how it connects. I'm not so good with how to do that.
So I'm not asking you to do it, I just want to know the theory behind the doing of it, even if you're not good at doing it, just as long as we know some thoughts or principles behind it.
I think you can calculate it like the first day of the first month and know that it's,
Okay, so we do a calculation. So Sister Ruth, do the calculation from Ezra 7, first day of the first month, first day of the fifth month. Do the calculation for us.
So first day of the fifth month was August.
She wants to do a calculation. What calculation are you doing?
I'm establishing the first day of the fifth month, which is August.
Carry on.
Carry on.
I want to know where you're going to go with the calculation, what you're going to calculate.
I thought you said I did a calculation or something.
No, she said, I said, why are you doing Ezra 7? She goes, because we can do a calculation. So I said, do the calculation.
Oh, okay.
Do you even know what she's talking about?
She's talking about Ezra 7 9.
Yep. What calculation are you talking about? Calculate what?
God's Jewish calendar to work on, I think.
Okay. Does that help?
I'm not too familiar with how to bring it together.
Okay. So it's a prophecy. With a prophecy or a time prophecy, how many components do you need, Brother David, for a time prophecy?
You need 2 components,
Only 2?
at least 2. I would say 2. You need, do you want me to say what they are?
Go
Or
ahead.
want me to-
Yeah.
Okay, you need an event, and you need the date/time. Is that where you're going, or is it? That's what I think anyways.
Okay. Sister Catherine?
So you need to start from there.
You need a start and an end, and not an event. Start and an end, and Sister Wendy? Unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. What have you got there?
Time frame.
The period of time. So you need a start, the period, and an end. And in fact, if you've got 2 of those things, you can calculate the third. You have to have 2 things to calculate whichever way you want to go. But a time prophecy has 3 components to it.
Isn't that an event?
But I want to get it to a date. A date. That's why I was trying to shy away from events. Okay? Because if you're doing mass calculations, you can't go to events. You have to go to dates. Yeah. So it has to be 1843. Can't be an event. Otherwise, you can't do the calculation. So 3 components.
Would that be Christology?
Sorry,
I was just thinking, would that be Christology?
Sister Ruth. The 3 components are in Ezra 7. No?
Sorry, what's the question again?
We're in Ezra 7, the 3 components. Sister Daniela?
The 3 components on Ezra 7. Is that? And the end. And then the time.
Sorry?
On the first day of the first month,
Yeah?
and on the first day of the 5th month, they arrived. It's the on the 5th month. It's
So-
the end.
Can you do the calculation now?
You have the dates
We've got the dates. 3 pieces of information.
Oh, the background,
hmm
the prophecy, the event.
No. For a time prophecy, you need what?
You need a start date, you need the end date, and you need the time frame between the start date and the end date.
Okay. Which one is missing?
What did it
What did he say?
say?
So you need the first component is the start date, and the second component is the end date, and the third component is the time frame between the start date and the end date. So that would mean how many days are between the start date and the end date, or months, depending on
Okay, calculation.
So it's the duration,
hmm
duration of work.
the time period.
Yep. I want you to do it.
Oh, between the two, it's gonna be 5 months. First month, 5th month, right?
This one, this one. Yeah.
Yeah, so 5 months. 4 months.
4 months. Days.
4 months times 30.
Okay, so it's 120 days. So Ezra 7 becomes significant for us. We'll leave it at 120 because some people are going to object. Can really see it. Look at my eye. So we'll give it 120. We have to do a bit of tweaking to get that to work properly. So we've got Ezra 7 can give us time spans. Okay. So the reason why Ezra 7 becomes significant for us, special and unique, is not the same way that the Millerites did it, although it's similar, because first of the first month is April the 19th. Okay, so we're not going to say it's April the 19th, we're going to say it's what?
First day, first day.
Sorry?
In our calendar?
Yeah, go on then, yeah, in our calendar.
Maybe I didn't understand the question.
Sorry?
Then maybe I didn't understand.
Oh, what's the answer?
Clarify. I thought you meant in our calendar.
That's right, what would the answer be?
January, because that's where we start.
Oh, okay, no, not like that.
Okay, thank you.
The application, what did we say first of the first month is? We say it's 9/11. So we're going to take the first of the first month and make that 9/11. So how do you make that huge leap to give a random date in the Bible and make it 9/11? So what we're doing, I'm not asking how we do it now, what I want us to see is we've now shifted really far, that we're now taking dates and turning them into symbols, and this symbol is 9/11. Or we're saying that numbers are symbols of something. So as soon as you start saying numbers are symbols of something, it becomes more palatable, because all of us agree that numbers mean something. Yeah, whether it's 10, 2, 3, 4, 7, 12. We could have different answers. So I don't know what you think 12 is a symbol of. 12 will be the symbol of, sorry?
Government.
Government, foundation,
I'm thinking probation.
probation.
Well, and I say that only because 12 is 1/10 of 120, which is symbol of probation. Like for example, Noah page 120. So I'm looking at it in that sense. It may not apply, but that's just what comes to mind.
Okay.
12 disciples and
12 disciples. The number's complete. A nation. So it has different symbols. It has different meaning. So I think most Adventists would be okay with that. So we're not just saying numbers equal something. We're saying dates now equal something. So dates become symbols. Once we start doing that, then things become significant and interesting. So when we approach Ezra 7, we're going to take all the Millerite logic and we're going to, it's like Millerite plus. We're doing a lot more things than the Millerites ever imagined that you could do with Ezra 7. It becomes very significant. Are we okay with that? I haven't said how you get from first day of the first month to 9/11. My purpose wasn't to show you how to do that, but to show you that it's possible to take a number to symbolize something. So 12, government or organization. Then you can just take not just numbers, you can take dates. Dates can symbolize something. And we're saying dates equal 9/11. All the Millerites did was they said literally, first of the first month is literally April the 19th. And it really was literally April the 19th in another calendation, not the Roman calendation that they were using, which would be January the 1st. They're saying in our calendar that we want to use, April the 19th is the first day of the first month, the beginning of a new year. And that calendar that they're using is a Jewish calendar, not a Roman one. But we're doing something much more sophisticated than that. Any questions on that? So that's why Ezra 7 becomes really important. There's a lot of information. When Ezra 7 becomes significant to us, we then are able to generate and create this kind of a, I think someone said a structure. Then what we do, what else is in the verse? Nothing. Okay? But what did the Millerites do when they approached this verse? What did the Millerites do, Sister Catherine? We spoke about it, it's on the board. Over here, what did the Millerites do?
They turned they applied it to a date.
First of the first month.
They got August.
Did they?
Oh,
Why is it in parenthesis?
because they didn't.
Because they didn't.
They got July.
There's no July there. What did they do? They went from the first of the first month to went from the first of the first month. They skipped over the verse and they went where? They went to the 10th of the 7th month. No information in the verse for that. They made it up. If we go with that, they made it up. So we can do that too, can't we? We'll call it Ezra 7, verse 9. It's not in the verse. We're going to take their logic and we're going to extend this to where, Sister Denise? It's right here on the board.
Just following the bottom. 2019.
Not there. Here. Ezra 7, first of the first month. They skipped the first of the 5th month and they went.
I don't know how the Jewish calendar works, so.
You know the Day of Atonement. 10th day, 7th month. It's on the board anyway, if you don't know it, it's just there.
Yeah, but what month is that in the Jewish calendar?
7th month.
But would that be, I mean, I'm thinking about it in the names of the month. You were just talking about that, right?
Tishrei, I think it is. Tishrei or Tishri. Which name you're looking for, the Hebrew name or the English name?
English name.
October.
Oh, okay.
You count. That's April. Count on your fingers. Or in your mind.
That's 6 months. When did you count April in it? Because I'm counting from May. Like April's already finished, so that's 1 month. May, June, July, August, September, October. That's 6. Am I doing that wrong?
So how do you think that's going to work?
It's not. Either I'm doing something wrong or that's wrong. Am I doing something wrong?
Is everything fine? It's more complex than we think, if we just go with that. Because it depends where you start and end the time period. Because you're starting on the 1st of April. Yeah? Go halfway into April. Go from the 15th of April. Then count.
Will that be the middle?
It takes you back to the middle of October. It all shifts over.
That seems like it brings me to the middle of September. Hold on.
So we got to the 10th of the 7th month, and if you can do a calculation here, you can do a calculation here. What's that calculation? What number is that? You can do that. 1st of the 5th to the 10th of the 7th. Same thing that Brother Jeffrey was doing when we did that Genesis thing. Ignore the days first, just work with the months. How many months is it?
2.
2 months. How many days?
11
We'll go with 10. 10 days. If you add all that, it comes to
days? 40 days. I mean, 70 days.
70 days. So you have a structure of 120 and 70. If you want to really check the maths and do that, I'd refer you back to videos where this has been done, properly laid out with all the nuances factored into it. So you've got 120 and 70. As soon as you get this structure, then you can start doing things that are pretty significant.
So you don't count the first day because it's the first day. That's the first, it's the beginning of the cycle.
You want to do the maths? You want to?
I just want to make sure I'm understanding it right in my head and not losing a day. But if we're starting from the beginning of the cycle, then it makes sense.
1 month is 30 days. 30 days, 30 days, 30 days. What's that last day?
Wait,
What's the first day of our counting cycle? The first day of the first month. And what's that one? Anyone? So that's day number 30.
I'm trying to count how many days there are.
Of the 4th month. I'll separate them. That's 130, 130. Does that help? So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 120. Okay? So the problem that someone was having is that 120 doesn't take you to the 1st or the 5th, it takes you to the 30th of the 4th. 120. Then the next month is the 5th month. And it begins where? The 1st of the 5th, that's that one. So if you do the 5th, then the 6th, that's 30, that's 1 and 30. That's 30 and 30, that's 60. Then you've got the 7th month, which starts from the 1st and goes to the 10th. 10 days, which is 70. Yeah?
I saw the number 1 up there, so I was trying to add a day instead of counting it as.
Yeah. So once you do that, you can develop structures. And once we developed this kind of a structure, what it allowed us to do was I'm not saying the way we did this is exactly this, but we said 120, 70, there's two groups here, two dispensations, two issues, two time spans. We then took that and made another large jump. Again, I've not explained how we make this jump, but we make another jump and we say group 1 and group 2. Two groups. First group of disciples, second group of disciples, or the priests and then the Levites. So this began to open up to us that there's two groups. And if you've got two groups, you can show that there's three groups, where we've got priests, Levites and Nethinims. So that's why Ezra 7 is so important. It just cascades on and it just opens up much more information than we ever had before. And it's all contained in this singular verse. Just like Daniel 8:14 is a really powerful verse that just keeps on opening up. Ezra 7 had that ability, which is why Sister Daniela said that's latter rain. This outpouring of information from something that looks dead, if you like, benign, doesn't have any power to it. If you didn't know all of this perspective, you'd read that verse and think, that was boring, didn't learn anything. What we would look at would be the 7th year of Artaxerxes, 457. We'd see all of that, which is what Adventists have done, and they've had no clue about doing any of this. And they looked at the Millerite or Snow's method as some kind of, some nicety or anomaly, but we've taken that and built and developed it using the same logic. That's what I want us to see. We use the same logic as them, the same methodology. Any questions on that?
How do we get the two groups? From the verse or from...
Not from the verse. You have to bring other information to it. But all I said was it's two dispensations at least, of 120 and 70. So you've got two dispensations. And I'm saying from those two dispensations, what we did was we distilled the idea or the concept that you get two groups. It's not that straightforward to do. You have to have other models to show that. But we did that. You could go to Ezra 7, Ezra 8, and you can see priests, Levites and Nethinims. But that's sort of in hindsight, if you like. All I want us to see is that you can see at least two groups, two dispensations. You can't see the two groups, you can see two dispensations, one following the other. And it's based upon that we developed this idea of having multiple groups. I'm not explaining how we did it. It's not in the verse. Just like I'm saying, that's not intuitive how that works. But that's what we did. We did that and we did this, group 1 and group 2. So I'm just saying that to explain the development of Ezra 7, why it became significant to us, why we call it the latter rain. Because it's something that just pours information out of nowhere. Any questions on that?
Some snow is associated with Ezra 7, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So if you do this, this structure here, you can do a number of things. One of them, you can see that you have these two dispensations and something significant happens here. What happens here? What's the first day of the 5th month? So this is the midnight cry. And if you went back a little bit, you go to the 5th day of the 4th month, and that would work out at midnight. So once you start doing that and start making application, it begins to become really significant. Midnight cry, what those things mean to us. Everybody okay with that? I want to come here now. So let's go to those quotes. Which one do you want to go to first, Sister Ruth? 90. So let's go to Testimonies of Church, Volume 9. And we're going to go to page 11. Not the page that's on the board. We just want to peruse page 11 first. Okay, this is section 1. It's the first section in chapter volume 9. It's called For the Coming of the King. That's what this section is called, For the Coming of the King. And the subsection is the last crisis. For the Coming of the King, the subsection is last crisis. And in between them, she's going to give us a Bible verse. What's the Bible verse, Sister Ruth?
She uses Isaiah 59 verses 14. No?
You have that? Oh, I have something different.
Like the first.
I have Hebrews 10. Do you have something different? Do people have something different?
10:37.
I don't see it. It's very soft.
Sorry, what are we doing? We go to the quote and then what are we doing next?
We're just going to 90,
Yeah.
page 11. Are we there? Okay, so it's section 1 of volume 9. The very first section, it's called For the Coming of the King. So that tells you what we're dealing with, the whole section. Then the subsection is called The Last Crisis. And the Bible verse that she's going to give us, the keynote Bible verse, is Hebrews 10:37. Yet a little while, and he that shall come will come and will not tarry.
I was just going to say, for people on their phone, if you just swipe one page back, the verse is there. Thanks, up.
What, James? Oh, okay, that. Yeah, I don't know how the phones work. I never use it on the phone. I just don't like them. Maybe because I'm not used to it. Everyone okay with that? Okay, so the keynote is Hebrews 10:37. So the first sentence, Sister Juliana, what's the first sentence? Please read it. I can't hear.
My English.
I can understand it perfectly well. It's only about 10 words. It's really short. Not the just the sentence, not the paragraph.
Sorry.
When she read, I want to see if she gets it.
On one occasion, when in New York City.
We're on page 11.
Oh,
Yeah, I said remember not the board. I said let's go to the beginning.
we are living the time of the end.
Good. So we're living in the time of the end. Sister Ruth, why are we reading Hebrews 10:37?
I guess it sets the tone for us about what she's going to be talking about in this chapter, which is really the second coming of Jesus.
Okay, and what's the connection to Hebrews? Rule number 1, every word has its bearing. What's the important words that you want to pick up in connection with the theme of this section? The subsection is the last crisis.
I would pick come.
Come? Sister Denise, what would you pick? Okay, someone will help you then. Sister Catherine? In the context of the passage, remember the importance of the words change depending on your perspective. They can be different depending on a person's perspective. So can't always say there's a definitive right answer. So Sister Ruth said come, and you say? Which one you want to go for? Okay? What's the difference between come and tarry?
One's moving and one's not.
Which means they're,
Opposite.
which means they're, if they're opposites, they're what? What's our fancy word that we use? When you have opposites. Hot, cold, tall, short. What's that? Sister Effie?
What is it?
Yeah, when you do that.
You juxtapose.
Juxtapose. Yep. So if you're going to say come, you're saying that's the most important word. What could you also say is the most important word? Tarry. Because, are you okay, Sister Ruth, if I said they're the same word? If I said they're the same word, they're 100% opposite to one another, but if you're going to carry one, you'd carry the other. So if it come, you would say will come. If I say will come, you say good. Did we see that?
Yeah.
Will come is will not tarry. You'll come and you're not tarried. It means the same thing. Are we okay? So if she picked come and I said, no, it's tarry, who was right? We were both right because it's the same word. So again, that introduces another dimension or complexity when we're looking at the importance of words, because it's not that straightforward. Because we could have argued, I said, no, tarry is the most important word. Tarry is the one, not come. But when you realise juxtapositioning, you realise that they are... Do you understand when I say they're the same word? Yeah? Because what's attached to that word is will come, not tarry. They mean, when you put not tarry, it means the same thing as will come. So if we take that bit out, come and tarry, I'm saying if you're going to pick one, they're two sides of the same coin, if I can express it that way, heads and tail. You okay with that, Sister Denise? Yeah?
It makes me think of the other illustration we did. The storm isn't here yet, but it's coming, so it's connected. Right?
Yes. Brother Douglas?
Yes.
That makes sense?
Yes.
Okay? So, the reason why she's quoting that passage is because what's about to happen? Brother David, what's about to happen? Not in your own words. Read, I want you to read something, but you have to read the right answer.
Yet a little while, and he that shall...
No, that's the Bible verse. Why that Bible verse? That's not the answer.
Oh, sorry, what's the question again?
Why are you picking that Bible verse? Why is it that one? And the key word is come and tarry. I want the answer. Why would we pick? If she picked it, we'd pick it, because we're in agreement with Spirit Prophecy. Why are we picking that verse? Where do you see the relevancy of that? But not your words, the words that are given to us.
I would, because it's associated with the time of the end.
Okay, so you're going to say time at the end.
Yes.
Brother Douglas,
Yeah.
time at the end.
Yeah.
Sister Wendy,
The last crisis.
the last crisis. So we've already got different answers. So if she's got a different answer, she already heard your answer and she disagreed. So you need to think about her answer. So you should be quickly reflective. Why has she got a different answer to me? Because she heard your answer and she disagreed. So you're at a disadvantage now. You've got to start thinking, why is she thinking differently to you? Okay? Sister Effie, do you need someone? Answer?
Well, she's picking that verse.
Just tell me the answer.
What?
Just tell me the answer. Just read. Sorry?
His coming is near.
No, I said I want you to read it. It doesn't say any. It doesn't say anything. I didn't read that anywhere.
Oh.
He said time of the end. She said the last crisis. They're reading a phrase. You have to read the whole sentence. You tell me.
We are living in the time of the end.
Okay.
That's where they get it
Is that what you're saying? Same as Brother David. So you disagree with Sister Wendy?
I was going to go to the second sentence too, because I think it makes it more...
Just give me the phrase.
Coming of Christ is near at hand.
Okay, so if you're going to pick that one, can you hold on to that one? You had your hand up?
No.
Sister Rachel?
What do I say?
Why have they picked, you didn't have what?
I didn't have my hand.
I know.
I would pick for the coming of the King.
For the coming of the King. Sister Ruth, this is your passage. What are you going to go for? Where does it say that?
Are we talking about the first line?
You can pick anywhere you want to. You can go to page 13 if you want. I don't mind where you want to go. I want to know why they picked this verse.
Oh, I see.
Because you told me the important word is, you said tarry. I know, you said come, I said tarry. So you say tarry, I say come. Okay? So I want to know, if that's the key word, where did they, why did they use that word? So I want you to read something that confirms or proves what you said.
Okay.
Prove to me that the key word is come. As you're thinking, I'm trying to change the way we approach inspiration, that you don't just plunge into it, headlong and blundering through, and you end up making mistakes. I want us to be more thoughtful and caring as we approach inspiration. Remember, Ellen White would say, take your shoes off because this is holy ground we're standing on. So I want us to be thoughtful about why things are done the way they're done. I'm assuming they spent a long time coming up with Hebrews 10:37, or the Holy Spirit was intervening providentially and he made them pick that one. However it is, I'm approaching it that it's important that they chose that verse. Sister Ruth agreed and she said the word is come. So if the word is come, I want to know where is that concept, that idea, to make them choose that verse. So you're going to say, just read out why they're picking that. I've got three answers. I've got time of the end, I've got the last crisis, and I've got for the coming of the King. And what's your answer? If you're not sure, just tell me and I'll give you a guide. Okay, so I want to write a letter to a really good friend, and I say, I'm really missing you and I really love you. Okay, so that's my letter. As a Christian, what would I want to do at the end? Or maybe halfway through or something, what would I add? Not my own words, what would I add? A verse, you'd add a verse. What did I say to them? I miss you and I love you. So I'm going to send a verse that says be strong and of a good courage? No, it's got nothing to do with my letter. You agree with that? I pick a verse that's connected to my letter, and my letter said I miss you and I love you. So I don't know where I'm going to go, maybe in the book of Psalms or Song of Solomon or something, depending on who the person was. So remember, we started with the passage, Spirit of Prophecy, and they have added what?
Bible verse.
What word have they added, Sister Ruth? In the verse, they added the verse, what word is it that they want us to pick up on?
In Hebrews?
Come. So they picked the word. They picked Hebrews 10 because it had the word "come" in it. So tell me, where do you see that in the statement in the Ellen White part of this?
Okay. So I
all the way down to 15 you want to go, not before?
Yeah, because I'm picking a verse.
A Bible verse?
Yeah.
Can't pick a Bible verse because it's my letter. I miss you, I love you. I'm going to reinforce that with a Bible verse. Ellen White is just an author. She's going to reinforce her writing with a Bible verse. So it has to be around the beginning. It has to be where we are now.
For the coming of the king.
Okay? You're asking or telling?
I'm confused. I'm not sure what you're asking.
Okay, Sister Rachel, I think you knew what I'm asking. What am I asking?
I think that the verse would be connected to the subject, and define the subject maybe in the title.
Which, okay, so without saying that bit, which comes first? The verse or the subject? The subject. This is Ellen White's letter. She's writing a letter, and if you're mature enough to follow through and not get agitated, she's just an author like you and me. She's just writing something out, and she wants to prove or defend what she said. So like us, what would she have to do? Sorry? She has to find a verse. So she said something, and she's going to use a verse to prove what she said. And the verse that she's going to use that proved what she said, what was that verse saying?
It will come.
Come. The word said come. So where did she find that verse from when she was writing whatever she was writing? She must have written something that she had to bring the Bible verse to confirm that. So, okay, so we've done it long enough. I didn't want to drag it out. I'm suggesting that it's for the coming of the king. The subject is what? The king is now coming. I've added the word now. He hasn't come for a long time, but now he's coming. It says that in the verse.
So where's that phrase?
The section 1 for the coming of the king. It's the,
Okay.
in the phones it's not that easy to see. So the section is the king is now coming. I've put the word now in there because the emphasis is he wasn't coming before and now he's coming. Okay? How do you know he's coming now? How do you know he's coming now? Sorry?
Because he will not tarry.
Okay, not the Bible verse. Brother David, how do you know he's coming now? Because we're in the time of the end. So we're in the time of the end. So we know he's coming now. And then the verse says, in a little while, he will come and he won't delay. He won't tarry. How do we know he's coming in a little while, Brother Douglas? Because we're in the time of the end. Okay? So what I want us to see is the verse is not a random verse. If we find a key word, it's he's coming now. And that's connected to the whole subject, which is for the coming of the king. So we want to make sure we know what this whole passage is dealing with, because we're on page 11, and in 2 pages we're going to say 9/11, aren't we? You can say 9/11 in 2 pages. So you need to know that we're correct in saying it's 9/11. So we want to begin at the beginning. This is to do with the second advent, and we know that Christ is coming soon. Why? Because we're in the time of the end. Are we okay with that? Are we on the same page?
I just want to say I didn't see that for the coming of the king.
Okay.
I might have chosen that one, but I didn't see
Oh, you didn't see it on the phone itself? Yeah.
Swipe over to see the text, the beginning of
It's like-
even on the computer as well, online.
Oh,
I
okay.
had to click next to see that, to read and stuff, but
Same here. So that's why I chose coming on Christ as near at hand. I moved because
Yes, and when you said coming, that's the second sentence, and to me, I said, of course that's the right answer, but I'm thinking, why don't you just go to the title?
Oh, because you thought I could see. Okay.
Because for me it's all on one page, because she went for the title and you went for the second sentence, which is exactly the same as the title. The coming of Christ is near at hand for the coming of the King. So the second sentence gives more information because it adds is near at hand, same as the verse. It's a much fuller answer. But I wanted to go to the very title of the whole section because it's all done in sequence. The King is coming. We'll prove it. He's not going to delay. And now we're in the last crisis. Everyone okay? So this is a technical problem. We're living in the time of the end. I mentioned this before. I didn't make a big push about it. But it's in and not at. Are we okay with the difference between them? At is a point in time, a waymark, and in is a period of time.
Right.
Good.
Sorry, you just said that's a technical problem.
Oh, the title. Because on my computer I can see I've got...
Oh, I see what you mean, technical.
Yeah, my one looks like that. It's got all the information there. And
That's the old version.
and Sister Wendy's looking at it thinking there's not even a section 1 title. Or
It's just the last crisis,
That is a
right?
technical problem. Got it, okay.
although I did mention it, I did list them out, but it's easy to miss it. So that's what I meant technical. It's a software issue or not, whatever. Okay, so we'll draw a line. And where are we, Sister Denise?
Where are we now, or in there?
We're taking this, we're here in this passage. Where are we in the passage?
1798?
Sorry?
1798?
Are we? This was written in 1909.
Oh, well then I guess not. Still in 1909?
Good, we're in 1909. Is 1909 the beginning and the end, or beginning or the end of anything?
It's the beginning of the end of year, but I don't know.
It's in the middle of something. It wasn't the time of the end, and it's not the end of the world. Christ hasn't come yet, so it's somewhere in the middle. If you're okay with that, we're here in the middle. The beginning is what?
1798.
Good. The time of the end, 1798. So that's where we are. We're somewhere in the middle. And we'll come back to this first bit. I just want to jump down now so we have a framework. We're going to jump down to page 14. .2. Sister Danielle, can you read 14.2? And then tell me why we read it.
The world is stirred with the spirit of war. The prophecy of the 11th chapter of Daniel has nearly reached its complete fulfillment. Soon the scenes of trouble spoken of in the prophecies will take place.
Okay, so why are we reading that?
Because
Don't go into detail.
we're talking about the time of we're in the time of the end.
Mm-hmm.
And Daniel 11 does talk about the time of the end.
Good.
Yeah.
Bit more.
Daniel 11 verse 40.
Bit more. Is this Daniel 11 verse 40?
Is this Daniel 11 verse 40? Oh, wait, sorry.
Is-
Is this Daniel 11 verse 40?
You mentioned Daniel 11 verse 40. I'm saying, is this Daniel 11 verse 40?
No, it's just saying the 11th chapter of Daniel. Daniel
No, it's not just saying that.
Oh yeah, we're in the end, we're in the last verses of Daniel 11.
Okay, where does it all? Where does it begin?
Where does what begin?
The last verses of Daniel 11, like you
Oh,
just
Daniel
said.
11 verse 40.
Okay, so that's there on the board. I've got that.
Yes.
Okay. So
1700.
So we've done that. That was page 11. We're on page 14. Page 14 is not talking about page 11.
Okay.
I'm suggesting, depending on how you read. I'm running out of time, so I'm pushing and adding.
So we 1989. Okay.
Okay, Brother David, what word do you like here? Second sentence.
Second sentence only. It says the prophecy of
Yeah.
the chapter.
What word do you like?
In relation to
Nothing, just
nothing?
random.
Oh. This is not an important words.
Not important one. Which one do you like?
Okay. Complete fulfillment. Sorry, you said one word. I'm gonna make a phrase.
Complete fulfillment.
Yes.
Okay, tell me what that is. What's a complete fulfillment?
That is a tautology.
Tautology and fulfillment.
Tautology.
So you've got a tautology in a tautology. Just so that, to make it clear what we're talking about, she does a tautology fulfillment and then does another one. Why would you say complete fulfillment? What does that even mean? It doesn't mean anything. What's she driving at, Sister Daniela?
But I don't understand.
Full means?
Complete.
So you've got complete, and fill means?
Well, fill is a verb. Fill.
You had complete.
Yeah.
I said, what does full mean? You said complete, and fill means?
Oh, it's complete.
So you got complete. So where are we? If it's complete.
Here, the last complete. We're finishing.
Good. We're at the end. There it is, at the end. Okay, so we're not looking for the important word. The reason why I did that is because Brother David likes tautology. So I wanted to say that there's a tautology there. Okay, so what have we now created? A line. We went from page 11 to page 14, if we're okay with that. So we've created a structure. So it says, the world is stirred with the spirit of war. The prophecy of the 11th chapter of Daniel has nearly reached its complete fulfillment. And then it says, Sister Effie, are you here now? Are you listening with me? Okay. Make sure you read the word, or you say the word correctly. Okay. Soon the what? No. The. I say soon the, and you say. No. Got to think the same way I'm thinking. Soon the.
The king will come.
No.
Okay, maybe I didn't get the first part.
Soon the.
Chapter will be fulfilled.
Don't help her. Soon the.
Soon the prophecy will be
Soon there's something. I want that. Spoken by.
Daniel.
Okay, not Daniel.
What?
Not Daniel. Okay, I'll help you a bit then. Come on.
Maybe you should say how many words are in the blank.
One word. It's only one word.
Obvious thing?
Yes, for you it's obvious.
Man, that's not good.
There's something spoken by me, Ellen White.
Maybe how many letters?
Why am I asking her and not anyone else?
Because she mentioned it in class.
Okay, come on.
Oh, guys, really?
In class, at breakfast, with Elder Tabo.
Okay, let me think.
What comes after chapter 11?
Also probation.
Soon the.
The end. Probation. Typical.
Okay, does anyone want to help her? You got it? You got it?
Okay.
Soon the scenes of trouble, soon the storm spoken of in the prophecies will take place. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Everybody good? So this point here is not the time of trouble, it's not the storm, it's the close of probation. You okay with that, Sister Ruth? Okay, so the title is what? Not the last crisis. For the coming of the King. Where's the coming of the King? Where's the coming of the King? We're in the time of the end. Okay, it's here. So we're here, which is the coming. So what is the purpose of this whole section?
The purpose for it is giving us a little bit more details of what to expect right before the second coming.
Everybody got that? So the whole purpose of this section is here. So that's what the purpose is. Subsection, the last crisis. Okay? So we haven't read contextually what the last crisis is. So I'll give that to you. If you're ready before, you could give it to me, but we're really running out of time. So I'm saying the last crisis is this. All of it. It's not just this. The whole thing. We're living in what? We're living in the last crisis. This is the last crisis. In fact, you can really do that if you went to Revelation 10 and you saw the commentary that Ellen White has on Revelation 10. Revelation 10, I think it's 7 BC, I think it's 971 or 791, one of the two. Manuscript 59, 1900, it says, when the angel comes down, he sets one foot on the land and one foot on the sea. And that means what, Brother Douglas?
One foot on the land.
And I'm going to say no to your answer. Give me your answer.
The angel of Revelation 18 comes 1 foot.
10.
10. 1 foot on the land, 1 foot on the
What does it mean?
It means that he is covering the whole.
Okay, so my answer was? No. Sorry. That's the standard answer that we all come up with is correct. Ellen White says that. But let me just read to you what else she says in the same section before the one that we quote. We're at the beginning of the section. I'm rushing now, so I apologize. The mighty angel who instructed John was no less a personage than Jesus Christ, setting his right foot on the sea and his left upon the dry land. Okay, so we're there. Then this is what that means. Showing the part which he is acting in the closing scenes of the great controversy with Satan. That's what it means. Next sentence. The position denotes his supreme power and authority over the whole earth. So it's not a worldwide message. It's his land and sea is showing his authority as he engages and begins the final crisis battle with Satan. That's what it means. Primary definition. Then she says, we can also see a worldwide message, which is what we normally pick up, which is what you find in the Great Controversy. The Great Controversy, when it addresses this issue, I think it's in the Great Controversy, it doesn't do this bit, it does the other bit. The message went over the land and sea and all the missionary stations. You're familiar with it, but I want to read again what she says. His shows the part which he is acting in the closing scenes of the Great Controversy. Position denotes supreme power and authority. So there's lots of things we can pick out of that. So it's this last great crisis. I hope you're okay with when I sort of draw you in and play around. It's all done in to find joy. Good. Okay, so we've got page 11 and page 14. Okay, so now we're really pressing. Now we're going to go to the quote that Sister Ruth gave us. She gave us 12.1 to 13.1. So it's a fairly lengthy section.
You can actually pick 12.1 and 13.1.
Okay, so we're going to read 12.1. There isn't a 12. Oh, yes, there is. 12.1. On one occasion, when in New York, I was in the night season called upon to behold buildings rising story after story towards heaven. These buildings were warranted to be fireproof, and they were erected to glorify their owners and builders. Higher and still higher these buildings rose, and in them the most costly material was used. Those to whom these buildings belonged were not asking themselves, how can we best glorify God? The Lord was not in their thoughts. I thought, that those who are thus investing their means could see their course as God sees it. They are piling up magnificent buildings, but how foolish in the sight of the ruler of the universe is their planning and devising. They are not studying with all the powers of heart and mind how they may glorify God. They have lost sight of this, the first duty of man. As these lofty buildings went up, the owners rejoiced with ambitious pride that they had money to use in gratifying self and provoking the envy of their neighbours. Much of the money that they had thus invested had been obtained through exaction, through grinding down the poor. Just want to add there, this subject of grinding down the poor, I'm going to say, is a subject of slavery. If you're keeping an eye on the Midnight Cry message, the subject of slavery is something that we're coming across over and over again. It's an important part of our message, and it will become an increasingly important part of our message. So I just keep that in the back of your mind. This issue of slavery is going to be discussed more, and it's going to be developed more about what slavery is, what it looks like. They forgot that in heaven an account of every business transaction is kept, every unjust deal, every fraudulent act is there recorded. The time is coming when in their fraud and insolence men will reach a point that the Lord will not permit them to pass, and they will learn that there is a limit to the forbearance of Jehovah. Are you okay with that so far, Sister Ruth? Okay, so if you kept up with me, I'm in 12.3, and I want us to focus on the last sentence of 12.3. Are you there? So I'm going to ask you now, Sister Ruth. Time is coming. So is the time here yet? Past, present or future?
It's coming.
Future. So it's future to when she's writing this. The time is coming where in their fraud and insolence men will reach a point that the Lord will not permit them to pass. Okay? So here you are. I'm just going to I'll leave 1909. So there's going to be a point in the future that they can't step over. So here's the point, here's the line. Someone cannot step over that line. Who cannot step over that line?
The fraud, the men, the evil.
Evil men. So I'm going to put wicked, if you're okay with that, the fraudulent men. So the wicked men cannot stay over that. So that, sometimes you call it like a red line. So you're here, but you can't step over. Okay? So we'll take that thought, and then it says they can't permit, and they will learn that there is a limit to their forbearance of Jehovah. So what's happening on this side with respect to Jehovah's behavior towards them? What's on this side?
Long-suffering.
Okay, long-suffering. So I'm going to say there's a limit. On this side, what's on this side?
The provisions.
Okay, so I'm going to say no limit. So there's a limit and no limit. A limit to what?
To the wickedness,
Okay, no, it didn't say that.
to the fraud, and
So it says there's a limit to their forbearance. So it says there's no limit now, and there's limit. So I'm going to say there's forbearance on here. Eh? He's going to forbear here, and this side, there's no forbear. And what do you call that, Waymark? When you go from forbearance to no forbearance, from limit to no limit. Close of probation. Okay, so I'm going to rub all of that out, and I'm just going to say it's there. Okay, and that's 12.3. So 12.3 is the close of probation. And all we've read so far is that she has a vision while she's in New York. She's in New York, she has a vision, and she says, I saw that when you get to the close of probation, the people who've made these buildings, what's going to happen to them?
That they will reach, they'll get there.
They'll get here,
Happiness will fill the cup.
okay, and so what will God do on the other side of that?
There'll be no forbearance for them. They will cross the eye of
Tell me what, when it says forbear, what does that either definition mean or the connotation? If I said I forbear.
you will not withstand the wickedness anymore.
So if you don't withstand it, what's going to happen on the other side?
They'll get punished for it.
Punished. So if I said forbear, that means I'm supposed to be doing something, but I'm not going to do it. And then you get to a place where you say, I'm not going to forbear. Forbear means to stop doing something that you're supposed to be doing. So what should God have been doing all through here?
You should have punished them.
So he should have been punished in them, but he decided he wasn't going to. He said, I will forbear. So then you said a cup. So you want to fill their cup up here. So now the cup is full, and then he says, your cup is full, so I'm going to stop forbearing. And if you stop forbearing, what are you going to start doing? Now you're going to start punishing. So 12.3 is talking about the punishment of whom? Of people. And these people are wicked. And what was their wickedness?
Fraud. And in their unjust deals,
Okay, so they're fraud, unjust deals. What else?
amassing wealth at the expense of the poor.
And what else? What did they do with all of this wealth and whatever? What was the epitome of it?
To satisfy their own greed.
What did it look like?
In form of the two buildings in this context.
Two?
Of buildings.
So the wickedness is building. That's the visual representation of their wickedness. So if I looked at you, you look pretty wicked to me, and you say, well, what's she done that's wicked? I said, look at those buildings that she's just done. The buildings are the symbol of their wickedness. Are you okay with that? Yeah? That takes you to way back where? To what story? Babel. Takes you all the way back to Babel. The symbol of their wickedness is the building itself. So the buildings take on the symbol of their sin. So when God's going to punish them, what's he going to do?
Just like he's going to bring down the buildings.
He's going to punish the buildings because the buildings are an extension of them.
Right.
You okay with that? Okay, so he's going to tell you, now What's going to tell you how he does what?
How he punishes them
Punishes.
by bringing the building down.
When you say them,
Yes.
how he punishes.
The wicked.
Okay, you've read the passage, and I think you're going to find there is no talk about hurting people. We'll read it, but you'll see, I don't think you're going to find any people are getting hurt.
The buildings.
The buildings are getting hurt, aren't they?
Yes.
He's going to show, I'm punishing you by punishing what? The buildings are going to get the punishment, not you. Who got hurt in the Tower of Babel? Nobody got hurt. He wiped those buildings out. Anyway, so we'll read on. The scene that next passed before me was an alarm of fire. Men looked at the lofty and splendid fireproof buildings and said, they are perfectly safe, but these buildings were consumed as if made of pitch. The fire engines could do nothing to stay the destruction. The firemen were unable to operate the engines. Okay, so 13.1 is the 9/11 quote that we pick up, okay? But this statement is what? What's it talking about? Who's getting punished? Okay, so I agree with that. I'm just going to say it this way. The men are being punished, but they're being punished existentially. It's the buildings that are going to take the wrath. The men don't get hurt anywhere. If you read on, you will find nowhere that the men get hurt. It's the buildings that get hurt. When are the men getting hurt? When does the forbearance stop? Close the probation. This is when the infliction of pain happens. Who's receiving the pain? The buildings are receiving the pain because they're the symbol of the wickedness of men. If you attack the buildings, you attack the men. Remember, this is one perspective, one story. I'm not saying God's not going to attack those men. But in this story, he's attacking buildings because the buildings are the symbol of their evil. Okay? So, according to 13.1, the one that you gave us, when did the buildings get attacked? From what we've just read, it's here. That the buildings are going to be taken down or destroyed because they're the symbol of the wickedness of men. Okay, so the quote itself, we've read 13.1, let's read 13.2 now. I am instructed that when the Lord's time comes, if there should be no change in the hearts of the proud, ambitious human beings, men will find that the hand that had been strong to save will be strong to destroy. So you tell me, the hand that's strong, it's a strong hand, which hand is that?
The strong hand of God.
The right hand.
Yes.
The right hand is a symbol of strength.
Right.
Okay. Hand is a symbol of what? I already answered that. It's a symbol of strength. Okay. So the hand is a symbol of power. That's what hand is a symbol of. So it says the hand was strong to do what? To save. Now we're going to be strong to destroy. It was strong to save what? What was being saved? What was normally God saving? Human beings, isn't it?
Yeah.
But what's getting saved contextually? The buildings. Because the buildings are an extension of the men. So he would save the buildings, and he was strong to save the buildings. Providentially save the buildings, and now what is he going to do? He's strong to destroy them. Next sentence. No earthly power can stay, I'm going to change the word, stop the hand of God. No earthly power can stop the power of God, stay the hand, stop the power of God. No material used in the erection of the buildings will preserve them from destruction when God's appointed time comes to send retribution on men for their disregard of his law and for their selfish ambition. So when is all of that going to happen? When this retribution comes, when he's strong to punish, where before he was strong to save. We haven't added the word in, but I know it's the word that you know, which is probationary time. When we talk about forbearance, we talk about probationary time. Close of probation is forbearance ends. So 13.2, we read 12.3, so let's just do that. 12.3 is referring to what time period? When the forbearance stops and all of that. What time period was that? Close the probation. Okay, now we're in 13.2. And what time period is this? When he's strong to save, now he's going to be strong to destroy. The time comes to send revenge or retribution on men. When does God send retribution on men?
During the 7 plagues.
During the 7 plagues. I'm going to call that COP. Okay, so you've got COP and COP. And which paragraph have you got in the middle? Between 12.3 and 13.2. What paragraph number is it? 13.1. And 13.1 was the proof text paragraph that we used for 9/11. So how can you have close of probation, 9/11, close of probation? The only way you can do that is if you're going to make the assertion that this is a flashback. I don't know if everybody knows what flashbacks are. Given a story, like I'm an adult and I'm going to do, suddenly I'm going to flash back to my childhood, then without warning I'm going to come back into my own history. The flashbacks do happen. Ellen White does flashbacks. The Bible does flashbacks. We've got to decide, is 9/11 a flashback? And I'm going to argue, is 13.1 a flashback? And I'm going to argue it's not. If you go from 12.3 to 13.1, it's a continuation, the story is. It says there will be no limit to his forbearance. And then it says the scene that next passed before me was one of fire. So he's going to show you what happens when God doesn't have forbearance. When he doesn't have forbearance, what's going to happen? Destruction happens. Then 13.2, it shows you what that destruction looks like if there's no change. So I'm saying 13.1 isn't 9/11, it's close of probation. And if we went to Review and Herald July 5th, or some people know it as Life Sketches 411, you go to that passage, work through it carefully, you'll see the same kind of problems, similar issues. So these are not 9/11 passages. I want us to, hopefully we've gone through this, it was too quick, we're already 10 minutes over, but it was slow enough that you can see, going back to the very beginning of the section, it's all about here, it's the coming crisis, it talks about the time of the end, then it talks about the end of Daniel 11. Doesn't talk about verse 40. Where would verse 40 even be? It'd be back here somewhere, depending on how we're dealing with the time of the end. I know it's 1798, but even if we made it 1989, 9/11 would be where? 9/11 is in verse 40, not verse 41, 2, 3, 4, 5. And our focus is here, back down here. So, page 11, page 14 show you the context of what we're talking about. Go into the detailed reading of it. We read from 12.1, but I highlighted 12.3, 13.2. Clearly you can see that they're close of probations, and you see that 13.1, which is the intermediate paragraph, is just a flowing thought from page 12 into page 13. And it is not a flashback, and if it's not a flashback, we're reading incorrectly out of context to make this 9/11. And the only justification for doing that is because it looks like what we read, which is the launch or the beginning of another subject, another study I should say, not another subject, another study, to be able to prove or explain the relevance of 9/11, because we're not about to trash 9/11, at least not that easily. We still have a few more tricks up our sleeve. We're way past time. Apologise for going over time. Let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for your goodness. We want to ask for a special blessing upon us during this preparation day, the last time we will be together in this capacity. Lord, we thank you for bringing us through this week. Help us to enjoy the last remaining hours with each other. We thank you for the love that we can have for each other and the relationships and friendships that we have either made for the first time or that we've strengthened through fellowship with each other. Please continue to be with us and bless us, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.